we are back. Thanks for clicking on the link. Welcome to Good Energy. Enjoy the content, and everyone have a blessed day. And we are back. Welcome to Good Energy. In this special boxing edition, we will be covering the biggest title fight of the year with Errol Spence Jr. versus Yordenis Ugas. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Before we go any further, please like and donate to my PayPal if you can. At the conclusion of this video, you will have a sound decision from all of my expert information on who will win this bout and why. That is correct. Good Energy special boxing edition. Let's get right into it. This is a welterweight unification championship belt for the WBC, WBA, and IBF championship belts. Errol Spence Jr. holds the WBC and the IBF. The WBA super welterweight champion is Yordenis Ugas. Yordenis Ugas, he's going to be coming into this bout the older man. He is currently 35 years old, a native of Santiago, Cuba. He's going to be 36 years old this July. He has 31 title fights under his belt. 27 of those have been wins, 12 by knockout. He has 4 losses, with his most recent loss coming to Showtime Sean Porter for the WBC welterweight championship belt that Errol Spence currently has after defeating Showtime Sean Porter. We will get into both of those fights shortly. Yordenis Ugas, his biggest win of his career, coming against Manny Pacquiao last summer, which has helped him achieve super welterweight champion, and he currently holds the WBA championship belt. That is what is on his shoulder right there in that image. We're going to cover that Manny Pacquiao bout. Don't worry, stay tuned. Like, subscribe, comment below. Yordenis Ugas, very accomplished career. In terms of his medals, he has a ton of medals. He's a 2008 Beijing bronze medalist. He has several Caribbean Games, Pan American Games, Pan American Championship medals under his belt. We saw him win the 2006 Cartagena lightweight Pan American Games. He won the 2007 Rio Pan American Games. He won the Pan American Championships in 2005. He was a silver medalist in 2008. In the Stratsac Cup 2008, he was a silver medalist. He was a world champion medalist in 2005 in Beijing. The World Cadet Championships, he was a gold medalist in 2003. In the World Cup Championships, he was a silver medalist in 2005 Moscow and a gold medalist in 2006 Baku. Yordenis Ugas is very accomplished, and it's good to see him finally get the big fights. He has put in a lot of work. He has come up through the Cuban boxing system. He is very skilled. He is very experienced, and he is someone you do not want to take lightly. He's going to be fighting the WBC and IBF welterweight champion, Errol Spence Jr. Errol, the truth Spence Jr. Errol Spence is going to be the taller man. He's 5'10". He's going to have the longer reach by 3 inches at 72 inches. He's from Dallas, Texas, by way of Long Island, New York. He's the younger man. He just turned 32 years old last month. Errol Spence has 27 professional fights. All of them have been wins. He has 21 of those wins coming by way of knockout. He has a very accomplished amateur career and a lot of gold medals. He's a U.S. national champion 3 times, 2009 in Denver, 2010 in Colorado Springs, and he repeated in Colorado Springs 2011. 3 years in a row he won the national championships. 2010, he also won the U.S. National PAL Championships. Very accomplished. He won the Golden Gloves in 2009 Salt Lake City, and he was a silver medalist in the Golden Gloves in 2010 Little Rock. Errol Spence Jr., very accomplished. He has a very, very insane body attack. He is southpaw. That is also something to note. Yordenis Ugas did defeat Manny Pacquiao. He is good at fighting southpaws, but the reality here is Errol, the Truth, Spence Jr. is going to be the toughest fight of his life. Now, before I go any further, I want you to know these two men, they do know each other. They know each other very well. Keep that in mind. All right, let's get right into it. Yordenis Ugas has 4 losses on his career, and many argue that several of them should not even be there. They could have gone either way. The loss to Johnny Garcia in 2012, split decision 8-round. Again, very, very tough draw for Ugas. That bout, he could have easily got the win in there. Great activity in that bout. It could have gone either way. The loss against Emmanuel Robles in 2014 of February, another close, tough match that could have gone either way. He soundly lost to Amir Iman. I do think the bout to Sean Porter was somewhat controversial in terms of his 4 losses. That is definitely the most controversial, and let's get right into that match with Showtime Sean Porter versus Yordenis Ugas. Porter versus Ugas, this was a boxing treat for boxing fans. This bout took place on March 9th, 2019 in Carson City, California for Sean Porter's WBC welterweight championship title. And the reality here is, again, this was a popcorn treat for boxing fans, but it definitely flew under the radar. Most people thought Sean Porter would come in with this smothering style up against the ropes, body shots to head shots, and just smother Ugas to a decision victory. But it did not go exactly that way. To tell the tape, Ugas was the older man, 32 years old, 5'9", also the taller man, weight identical nearly, and the reach was 69 inches each, but I would question that. Clearly, Yordenis Ugas had the much longer reach. Sean Porter was on the outside for most of the fight this night. And one thing I do notice is Ugas, they list his reach at 69 inches, but he fights wide. I would definitely say his reach is longer than 69 inches from how he fights. He has a wide fighting style, and you can see here just connecting all night long with the jab. Both men attempted to use their jab to set up their offense, but Yordenis Ugas was definitely the first one to get off in these exchanges. Midway through the fight, if you take a look, Ugas had a game plan of going to the body. He came out with 9 body blows in the first round, and the reality here is midway through the fight, he had 30 body blows, which is 3 times more than Sean Porter. Judges had it knotted up at 57-57 through 6 rounds, which was, for the most part, how I had it. I would not have even been upset if he had Sean Porter had 1 round. But this is where things kind of got a little iffy. Sean Porter hit the canvas several times in the bout. The referee called them all slips. This last punch in the 12th round was definitely not a slip. Yes, he slipped and fell, but it was from the punch. Now, Sean Porter was backpedaling the entire night, and this particular exchange, that's actually the Spence bout. Here we go. Switch that back. Thank you. Now, this exchange here, if you take a look, Spence is back. But nonetheless, the knockdown with Yordenis Ugas was from a punch. Sean Porter was backpedaling, and the reality here is he just caught him while he was trying to escape. Sean Porter ended up getting the victory. I definitely thought Ugas won the bout. I watched this fight live, and did he take the bout from Sean Porter? Did he take the WBC championship belt from Sean Porter? Did he go in there and beat him? I felt he beat him, and I felt it. I say it was definitely convincingly. I think he beat him convincingly. I think he clearly won at least 7 of the rounds. But if we take a look at the punch stats, the final punch stats, Total punches landed. Sean Porter, I mean, he did a good job landing punches. The reality here is he landed a lot of punches, but Ugas dominated the power punches and the body blows. And Sean Porter outlanded Ugas 144 total punches to Ugas's 128 total punches. But the body blows was where it all mattered. Sean Porter landed 34 body blows to Ugas 57 body blows, and the reality here is late in the fight, you can see the body blows start to take their effect. Sean Porter was engaging less early in the rounds. He was waiting to, 20 seconds left to explode with exchanges. During the earlier parts of the round, Ugas was just dominating with his jab and his body blows, and you could tell Sean Porter was affected. Sean Porter had much heavy swelling on his eyes. You could tell he was in there in a fight. He was in a dog fight. And the reality here is his smothering style just did not work because Ugas also has a good inside game. Yes, Ugas has a good right to the body, and then he comes back with a right uppercut, and those punches were landing. Sean Porter's heavy volume came in 3 rounds, essentially 3 rounds that he won. So he did outland Ugas by 16 punches, but the reality here is a lot of those punches landed by Sean Porter, they came in round 6, round 7, and rounds 9. So a lot of his punches came during those rounds where Ugas was mainly consistent for much of that fight. So was it a robbery? We know that the matchmakers wanted Errol Spence versus Sean Porter. We know that was a huge money fight. The two men knew each other very well, and it was an easy fight to make, which they ended up making. Yes, I would say Ugas was robbed. That is about that. He should have won. The knockdown was a knockdown. There was a couple others. I'd say legitimately, it looked like Ugas had 2 knockdowns in that bout. Take away the knockdowns, he controlled at least 7 rounds of that bout. It was a split decision, and the reality here is I disagree with the 4-point victory by Sean Porter on either card. And the reality here is this is a match that Ugas got robbed, and that's okay. He would get another chance to get a welterweight championship bout, and this would come against Manny Pacquiao. Errol Spence Jr. was scheduled to fight Manny Pacquiao on August 21st, 2001 for a unification bout of the welterweight division for the WBC, WBO, and IBF welterweight championship bouts. This was a bout many boxing fans were looking forward to, but this was also a bout that many boxing fans were scared for Manny Pacquiao's health and safety in this bout. Errol Spence Jr. is the truth, and a lot of people thought this is a bout where Errol Spence Jr. could possibly stop Manny Pacquiao and hurt him. However, prior to the withdrawal from Errol Spence Jr. of this bout, there were several legalities at risk. Yordenis Ugas legal team had a very strong case that he should have been the mandatory for this bout. And researching this bout and paying close attention to it, as I was very excited to see Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao fight, this was a bout that I felt would not happen. Ugas had a very strong legal case, and they were moving forward with it. And the reality here is I knew this bout with Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence would not happen when I read over the details. We're not going to get too much into that, but miraculously, Yordenis Ugas would be put into the bill of this bout at the very last minute. And why was that? It was because Errol Spence Jr. needed to have immediate retina surgery on his eye, and the reality here is the bout could not go on. He could not get a medical clearance with the condition. He needed to have immediate surgery and was removed immediately from the bout, forcing Yordenis Ugas to prepare in less than 3 weeks for this bout, which was unbelievable. Now, we're going to cover more on the eye situation with Errol Spence Jr. shortly, but I do want to take a look at Yordenis Ugas being thrust into this championship bout and having only 3 weeks to train. What would happen? He would tear his bicep. And this was a very ugly, gruesome injury that he hid through the promotion and the interviews and the press conferences, wearing long sleeves, and it hindered his training. He essentially had to overtrain, having only a few weeks to prepare for this bout, and he tore his bicep. And many boxing fans and experts felt Manny Pacquiao, this would be the advantage that Pacquiao needed to run away with a landslide victory. But what happened? Let's take a look at this bout in detail. Manny Pacquiao came into this bout 41 years old. Now, I know he is forever etched in our memories of his prime victories in his 20s and early 30s, but the reality here is Father Time is undefeated. Ugas came into this bout on short notice. You see here with the images here before the fight, long sleeves is all he wore to hide his torn bicep, and it looked disgusting in the ring. It really looked like he may even end up retiring if Pacquiao could just put together a little bit of pressure. But it never happened. Manny Pacquiao was the 3-1 favorite in this bout, and all Ugas had to do was keep his jab working all night. I believe in the saying, a good big man beats a great little man any day, just by doing the basics. That's all Ugas had to do to win this bout. And the reality here is, again, a lot of people, they are stuck on the Manny Pacquiao of, the Oscar De La Hoyas, the Timothy Bradleys. They're stuck thinking that this is the Manny Pacquiao that beat Keith Thurman and Adrian Broner and Lucas Maltese and Jesse Vargas, the Chris Algieri's, the Brandon Rios, the Shane Mosleys, the Claudies, the Miguel Cottos, the Ricky Hatton, the Oscar De La Hoyas. This is not that same Manny Pacquiao. He's 41 years old. It's like you guys are expecting a little too much from a 41-year-old man. If, his speed is not going to be there. I mean, it's just his timing's not going to be there. All it takes is one bad training camp or one bad nights of rest to go into this bout at 41 years old and look like you're 41 years old. And the reality here is Ugas dominated this bout. He landed 151 total punches, and of those punches, 50 were jabs, and he landed an astonishing 59% power punches. He beat up Manny Pacquiao all night long. He dominated with 37% of his punches to the body. A 41-year-old man taking a punishing body attack like that, even if he did have some of his speed down pack, those body punches are going to slow down any offensive attack Manny Pacquiao could gather. And the reality here is Yordenis Ugas won a unanimous decision over Manny Pacquiao. Again, I say it all the time, a good big man's going to beat a great little man any day. Yordenis Ugas was way too big, and it showed. The reality here is Yordenis Ugas cruised to a victory, and this is not Manny Pacquiao. I don't think Manny Pacquiao is retired, but I don't think this is his last bout. I think his philanthropy is way too big, way too great. I think there's probably going to be some money issues in the near future, and I can see him coming back fighting for money, which is a shame, but I can see him coming back fighting for money once again, and it's not going to be against these elite welterweights. And the reality here is, if Spence fought that same Pacquiao, Spence would have stopped him. It's that simple. But nonetheless, Yordenis Ugas got the biggest match of his career, defeating Manny Pacquiao, an old Manny Pacquiao with a torn bicep. Want to take nothing away from Yordenis Ugas, but he fought a really good match, jabs and body blows. He is the longer man, he's the bigger man, he's the stronger man, he's the tougher man. Just a simple strategy like that would beat the smaller opponent like Manny Pacquiao, which he has to exude a ton of energy just to get on the inside. You know, Manny Pacquiao's, if you follow him and you study his rhythm and his timing and his footwork, he lunges forward. Every time he would lunge forward, Yordenis Ugas, he shells up. He's a good defensive fighter. He shells up. He's very good on his back foot. He's good at backing up and counter punching. He did that all night to a victory. Now, Errol Spence Jr., the man that will be fighting Yordenis Ugas, what is he bringing to the table? Is he the same guy? There's been a lot of nonsense about this car accident. Let's get into that. Hearing a lot of feedback, negative feedback about the car crash Errol Spence had. And the reality here is a lot of people are saying that Errol Spence is just not the same. And a lot of people, doubters, of course, people that aren't boxing fans, and a lot of people are saying that this injury took away a lot of his gifts, and he's never going to be the same person again. He's never going to, he's never going to dominate the sport again. This accident took place in October 2019, shortly after the huge victory over Shawn Porter. And this was October 10th, 2:53 a.m. Errol Spence, who was driving his Ferrari, and he was under the influence. And the reality here is he was charged with a misdemeanor. No one was injured in the car accident except himself. His car was totaled, and he sustained numerous facial injuries. He did not, however, have any broken bones. He was placed in critical condition, and the boxing community, fans of all, were praying for him. And the reality here is this accident was horrible. It really dismembered his face. It took a lot to recover, but I don't want to dive into this too much, and I don't want to be too analytical about this car accident, because the reality is he didn't have any broken bones. Okay, he didn't have any broken bones. He was able to come back and dismantle Danny Garcia, a top 5 welterweight, a strong, young, tough welterweight. He made him look amateurish. Okay, so this accident, for any of the doubters that are saying this accident hindered his career, I think not. Okay, the reality here is that accident he healed from, and we can even get into the retina issue. I think Errol Spence has always had a lazy eye. Anyone that watched him in boxing, I've met him several times, I have pictures with him. Errol Spence has always had a lazy eye. Okay, some of my friends have sparred with Errol Spence Jr. He's always had a lazy eye, and I think the retina issue is something that has bothered him probably for much of his career. You can tell in the interviews by his eye. Maybe the accident contributed to his eyes were shut. Maybe the accident contributed to the retina injury, but I don't think the retina injury is going to be an issue here fighting Yordenis Ugas. I do not think so. So for the fans and experts that are saying, hey, he has a retina issue, Ugas is going to jab his eye, they're going to stop the fight by the 6th round, that's nonsense, okay? Because you can't see what you can't hit. Errol Spence Jr. made it clear that he is not engaging in that type of lifestyle anymore. He's on borrowed time, and it's all about boxing right now, which is his extreme focus. That is scary, people. He's only focusing on boxing. Showtime Shawn Porter versus Errol Spence Jr. This took place on September 28th, 2019 at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Errol Spence Jr. came to the table with his IBF welterweight title. Shawn Porter came to the table with his WBC welterweight title. This was a bout that was going to be fireworks. Both men know each other very well. Kenny Porter had to accompany Errol Spence Jr. on many boxing trips and tournaments, like a stepfather to him. They're like cousins. They know each other very, very well. Ugas and Spence also know each other very well. Keep that in mind, people, okay? Spence Jr. came into this bout, and a lot of people, Spence Jr. is naturally the bigger man. He came into this bout looking very, very thin. He said it's been tough for him to make weight. It would not matter. This is a bout that Spence Jr., he put down Showtime Shawn Porter in the 11th round, and the reality here is I think he could have put him down a lot sooner. Errol Spence Jr., you can tell he came out, he tried to stick to a game plan the first couple rounds, but threw it out the window. By round 3, these guys were brawling every round. And this is what I want people to understand. Errol Spence Jr. said clearly, if I can go into a bout and I could just beat you easily, then I'm just going to do that. If I go to a bout and you are bringing it to me and you're on your best game, then I'm going to make it a dogfight and I'm going to fight you. I'm going to brawl with you. This is what Errol Spence Jr. did in the Showtime Shawn Porter bout. Showtime Shawn Porter, he lures you into his style, and if you're not disciplined enough, he can disrupt your game plan and your strategy and just turn it into a dogfight. That's what Shawn Porter does. This bout, after about the 3rd round, turned into a dogfight. And Errol Spence Jr., you could tell he threw everything out the window. Said, okay, you want to make it a fight? I'll make it a fight. And the reality is, Errol Spence Jr. said before the bout that he was ready to go in there and dogfight. And he's shown that he can box with you, like against a Mikey Garcia, or he can brawl with you, like against a Showtime Shawn Porter, or he can just stick to his game plan and just break down your body. The total punches landed 221 from Errol Spence Jr. compared to 172 from Shawn Porter. 108 to the head, 113 body blows from Errol Spence Jr. Imagine if that was Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao would have been stopped, okay, with a punishing attack like that. And by the 11th round, Shawn Porter had nothing left. He hit the canvas. And the reality here is Ugas, his strongest campaign of body blows against Porter was 57. Okay? Errol Spence Jr. essentially doubled that. Okay? And he clearly won this bout. I don't think it was a split decision. Errol Spence Jr. clearly won the bout. But nonetheless, the judges have to make it suspenseful and interesting. 2 split decisions, Porter with Spence Jr. and Ugas. But the reality here is Errol Spence Jr., he has shown that he can fight, he can brawl. And right now, he essentially hinted to the Mayweather strategy. If I can beat you just by boxing you, and I could tell it's going to be an easy night, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to engage myself into situations that I don't have to. And that's what he is doing. So a lot of people are saying, hey, well, what about the Danny Garcia bout? Okay, well, let's take a look at the Danny Garcia bout. How would Errol Spence Jr. look in his first bout since the insane, drastic, abhorrent car crash in his Ferrari, October 2019? Well, 1 year later, he fought Danny Garcia at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Hometown crowd came out. This was for Errol Spence Jr.'s WBC and IBF welterweight titles, December 5th, 2020. The tell of the tape, Danny Garcia, older by 2 years, much more experience in the professional ranks, 36 wins, 2 losses, 21 knockouts, 5'8", the shorter fighter. The reach, 4-inch reach advantage for Errol Spence Jr., also southpaw. Danny Swift Garcia, no chump in the division, very strong, very powerful, great knockout power. You saw what he did to Lucas Maltese. Danny Garcia bust on the scene with knockouts. Very strong fight against Keith Thurman. He came on late in that bout If he would have started faster, he would have won that bout against Keith Thurman. A rematch, I think Danny Garcia beats him in the rematch. But nonetheless, Danny Garcia, always great to see him and his dad. They are great. They always stop to talk. But this bout here, the truth did not lie. Errol Spence Jr. came out and dominated this bout against Danny Garcia. He made him look amateurish. He won every round. Some people had Errol Spence Jr. winning every single round. Unbelievable. Danny Garcia is a great fighter. And you see what he did to Danny Garcia. Unbelievable. He dominated him. Danny Garcia is big too. He's a big welterweight, a strong welterweight. We might have to start taking a look at Errol Spence Jr. versus the Charlo brothers pretty soon here. But nonetheless, Errol Spence Jr. very strong. Total punches 187. 187 punches landed. Unbelievable. Body blows 76. 76 body blows to Danny Garcia's 33. He dominated this bout. Unbelievable. Power punches 103. Look at the punch stats. Danny Garcia had no chance. 28 power punches from Danny Garcia. He had no chance in winning this bout, okay? Errol Spence Jr. is the truth. He does not lie. Well, I want to take a look at Mikey Garcia. Let's go back to that bout. Errol Spence Jr. can box with you, he can brawl with you, or he can just come out with a strategy and break you down. I want to take a look at the Mikey Garcia bout. Mikey Garcia, great training, great experience. This is a person that a lot of people thought would beat Spence Jr. Oh, Mikey Garcia, he's versatile. He's dominating the division. He's going to take Errol Spence Jr.'s title. Mikey Garcia, he's stronger, he's smarter, he's better trained. All right, well, let's take a look at the punches here. Power punches. Errol Spence Jr. landed 48% of his power punches. Average thrown 32 per round. 15-9. Okay, this is about that. Again, Errol Spence Jr., a lot of experts say he won every single round. Landed 32% of his body punches. Okay, he landed 19% of his jabs. Kept him at bay with his jab and then went to the body. He dominated Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is a very, very skilled, good fighter with a great resume. Have we looked at the resume of Yordenis Ugas? Have we took a close look at it? Yes, he got the win over 41-year-old Manny Pacquiao. He got the split decision loss over Sean Porter. Okay, that was a tough one. Okay, but have we looked closely at the resume, professional resume of Ugas? There it is for you. Take a close look at it. There it is. Take a close look at it. Have we looked at the resume of Errol Spence Jr.? Danny Garcia, unanimous decision. Sean Porter, he won that bout easily. Mikey Garcia, unanimous decision. The Garcias, some say he won both rounds. Okay, knockout over Carlos. Lamont Peterson made him stop with the body blows between rounds, round 7. Lamont Peterson was in the best shape of his life. Kell Brook, knockout in the 7th round. Are we looking at the resume of Errol Spence Jr.? Lamont Peterson was in the best shape of his life. Okay? The best training camp he ever had. Kell Brook, knockout in the 11th round. Made him stop. Made him quit in the stool. Chris Algieri, come on, 5th round knockout. Bundu, 6th round knockout. Look at this resume. This is just 16 until 22. And the reality here is Errol Spence Jr. has been the most ducked welterweight. Yes, he's been the most ducked welterweight. This I know for a fact. Okay, inside the training camp, inside the boxing community, Errol Spence Jr. has been ducked purposely. Okay? Much like a Crawford. Now, Crawford has a lot of promoter issues and things like that going on behind the scenes. But the reality here is Errol Spence Jr. has legitimately been ducked by a lot of these fighters. You heard Keith Thurman. You heard Danny Garcia. You heard a Showtime Sean Porter previously say it. None of these guys wanted to fight Errol Spence Jr. They've been ducking him. You heard about the Mayweather sparring issues. One of my buddies sparred with Spence Jr. and said, my buddy was 20 pounds heavier than Spence Jr. Sparred him and said, that guy's strong. He said, whoa, he's really strong. My buddy then sparred Mayweather and said, yeah, Spence Jr. is definitely the stronger fighter. He said Spence Jr. is one of the toughest sparring sessions he's ever had. He's a former champion. I won't name him, but Errol Spence Jr. is the truth, as his name speaks. Let's take a look at Kell Brook. Do not go overseas to someone's backyard for a title fight if you are not confident. Errol Spence Jr. went to the UK and dominated Kell Brook. Yes, he started off a little slow, a little jet lag, different time zone, had to make some adjustments. Said he was a little fatigued early on. Dug through it, weathered the storm, and he would stop Kell Brook. Man down. Man down. Unbelievable. Errol Spence Jr. stopped Kell Brook and took his IBF championship title. He's had it ever since, and I don't think it's going anywhere. But the reality here is we have the biggest fight on our hands that will take place this Saturday. Yes, that's right, this Saturday, April 16th. I'm excited. I can't even talk. I'm so excited for this bout. I'm trying to just rush everything out. I'm so excited. April 16th, it's gonna go down in Dallas, Texas. Not only will Errol Spence have the home crowd on his hands, he is the overwhelmingly favorite to win this match. So, without further ado, who will win this welterweight unification title bout between Errol Spence Jr. versus Yordenis Ugas, taking place Dallas, Texas, April 16th, less than 24 hours away? Let's get right into it. If you've listened this far, please like, subscribe, comment below. Please hit the like button and donate to my PayPal if you can. To tell the tape, Errol Spence Jr. is a younger man by 4 years, technically 3.5. Errol Spence Jr. had a birthday last month. He's now 32. Ugas will be 36 this July. Taller man by 1 inch, Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence is going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. He's a southpaw, and he has the stronger power with 9 more knockouts. Errol Spence Jr. is undefeated. Ugas has 4 losses, 31-4. If we take a look at some of the advantages between these two fighters, I think that Errol Spence Jr., he's going to have many advantages going into this bout. I think that not only is he going to have the stronger knockout power, he's going to have the more damaging body blows. He's going to have the longer reach, giving him the better jab advantage. He's more youthful, and he's going to have the better ring generalship and ring IQ. Errol Spence Jr. can fight coming forward. He can fight on his back foot. He can jab you to death. He can brawl with you. He can box. He can break you down. Yordenis Ugas, on the other hand, I think Yordenis Ugas, his amateur experience is not to be overlooked. He has several gold medals in the Pan American Games, and Yordenis Ugas is a warrior. He is a dog. He's going to have the advantage of being an underdog with nothing to lose. When you are in a bout like this, of this magnitude, after beating Manny Pacquiao, you have nothing to lose. And I think he's going to be the more relaxed person, just knowing that coming into this bout, no one expects him to win. However, the boxing fans and experts, many of them are picking Yordenis Ugas to win. The overall betting experts have Errol Spence Jr. He opened at a slight 3.5 favorite. He's now up as high as a 5 to 6 to 1 favorite. That can be scary, because this fight is going to be a lot closer than you think. If we take a look at both of these men and what they've done in their body of work as an amateur, you would probably make Yordenis Ugas a slight favorite, if not a 50-50 match. If we take a look at what they've done in their professional career, it's been different journeys. Errol Spence Jr. has been fighting the much more tougher competition throughout his professional career, and he has been known as a man that has been ducked in the welterweight division. That is not a lie, that is the truth. Like Errol Spence, he's been ducked repeatedly for many years. These guys have been ducking him. Errol Spence Jr. has a rumor of a reputation, which actually is true, just like his name, the truth, as a man that is not to be played with. He is highly skilled, he is highly talented, he is strong. He cuts a lot of weight, and he has mentioned after this bout with Yordenis Ugas, he wants to fight Terrence Crawford and he wants to move up. It's becoming very tough to make weight. He hired a nutritionist for this bout to get him right, and he said when he first came to Las Vegas, he was running trying to make weight, and he didn't realize why, after running 5 miles, he's not sweating at all. And he was frustrated thinking that he wasn't making weight. When the reality is, he spoke to a couple locals, boxing experts, and they said this is dry heat. As soon as your sweat comes off, it's most likely going to be evaporating. When he hopped on the scale, he weighed at 145, 2 pounds under the limit. And the reality here is he's had to get used to a lot of things training in Vegas. I've seen him numerous times training, and Errol Spence Jr. he's strong, he's big, he's skilled. I don't think the eye is an issue. He's always had a lazy eye. I've seen him many times, and you could tell he's got a boxing eye. He spars a lot. He's the type to put a lot of work in the gym. I want to show you this image of him on the body bag. Take a look. Errol Spence Jr.'s media workout was insane. A lot of guys can get in the ring, they can shadow box, and they can, make it look good for the cameras. But Errol Spence Jr. did not hold back. His media workout lets me know he's in the best shape of his career. He's in the best shape of his life. I think this bout here, he's not taking lightly. And what he put on, the display on the body bag, for me was insane. Being a former boxer, the body bag, you can hit your hardest blows on the body bag. The body bag is not going nowhere. It's going to be right in your face. Body bag displays stamina, power, will, mindset, determination, effort, hungriness. Errol Spence Jr. is looking very, very good. And if you take a look at his body of work and what he's done, Mikey Garcia, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, the things he's done to these top elite welterweights and athletes and boxers, he's made them look amateurish. In some ways, he's put on Mayweather performances. Now, we know what happened when Mayweather sparred him. Didn't go too well for Mayweather. Okay, there was a lot of rumor. They didn't want the footage to get out. Let's take a look at Yordenis Ugas. Looking at Yordenis Ugas training camp, I'm very familiar with his style. He has a great trainer, great coach. He's come up from the Cuban boxing scene. Very skilled, great amateur background, and the reality is this is the biggest fight of his life. How will he do? Looking at his training camp, looking at his media day workout, I could tell the training camp was a focus of just do what we've been doing the last few years, do what you know how to do. Let's get through this training camp with no injuries. Let's go in this fight healthy, and let's do what we do to the best of our ability and see if we can pull off a win. Yordenis Ugas is going to be the older fighter. He's going to be 36 years old this July. This is a training camp where they wanted to get through healthy because it's the biggest fight of his life and the biggest payday of his life. The reality here is the media day workout seemed like it was pretty easy going on him, pretty light work, not showing off too much. Compared to the Spence workout, Spence went all out 110% hard on everything he did. If that is any indication of how the fight's going to be, Errol Spence Jr. is going to walk away with the easy victory here. Yordenis Ugas is a skilled fighter. He's a long fighter. He's a rangy fighter. And I think his reach is longer than 69 because he fights wide. This is the type of bout where he is going to have to be the aggressor because Errol Spence is the younger fighter. He's a stronger fighter. He's a tougher fighter. He's a quicker fighter. Errol Spence is going to be able to get in with his jab to the face, jab to the body, right hand cross, left uppercut, left hook. And that's something Ugas is going to have to watch out for the strongest power punches are going to be coming from this opposite side where he has a chance to not see. Shawn Porter beat up Ugas pretty bad in the face. Errol Spence is a lot stronger, he's a lot faster, he's a lot smarter fighter. This could be a bloodbath in this bout here, but the reality here is my official prediction. I think this bout will go the distance. I don't see Errol Spence engaging in a brawl here. I see him fighting smart to a victory. It is a unification bout, and I don't see him wanting to even exchange like he did with Shawn Porter. Not to mention Ugas doesn't have that type of fighting style. Ugas is a counter puncher, and he's a very smart defensive player. However, you cannot block body blows. And watching the Pacquiao fight, Ugas did a lot of blocking. When Pacquiao would come in, he would block and then he would attack. Back up, block, attack. And the difference with Errol Spence is these strong punches, they're going to be coming all angles. Errol Spence is a good body puncher on both hands, and then he likes to come across with his left hook once he takes the right to the body. Ugas is going to have to watch out for that. I can potentially even see Ugas getting knocked down here. I do have Errol Spence coming out early and strong with his jab to the body. I see him starting quicker. I see Errol Spence winning the first couple rounds. The middle rounds of the fight can go either way. I see Errol Spence turning up the heat rounds 6, 7, 8, and 9. I can see him winning all those rounds as well as 11 and 12. I have Errol Spence winning this bout at least 116 to 112 on all judges' scorecards. I don't think it's going to be a split decision. I like Errol Spence to win this bout, and I do like this bout to go 12 rounds. So the official lock here, take Errol Spence to win by unanimous decision. That is minus 136. That is your lock. Take it to the bank here. Errol Spence is too good. He's too smart. He's too clean of a fighter to have any trouble with Ugas. Look at their resumes. They are very lopsided. Errol the Truth Spence Jr. will be the unanimous, undefeated, undisputed, unified welterweight champion. We are going to get a super mega fight with Terrence Bud Crawford. That might be a different story because Bud Crawford is no joke. Errol Spence is no joke. That's going to be fireworks, and that's going to be a bout where it's going to come down to game planning. Who game plans the best will win that bout. Both of those men are freak athletes. They're both strong. They're both tough. And the reality is I don't want to get ahead of myself, but a lot of people are talking about the eye injury. They're talking about the accident. If Spence gets through Ugas, which he should, and he fights Bud Crawford next, then I might start talking about the accident and the eye surgery and all that other stuff, because Bud Crawford is no joke. A couple years ago, I would have picked Errol Spence to beat Bud Crawford, but Bud Crawford has come on the last couple years and he looks very good. I might lean Bud Crawford if those two fought, because Bud, I think, is the better boxer. But the reality here is the official prediction, Errol Spence Jr. versus Yordenis Ugas. I have Errol Spence Jr. winning by unanimous decision. I have it going 12 rounds. This is Good Energy, guys. Please like, subscribe, comment below if you listen this far. Please, it just takes a little bit of love. This is Good Energy. We will be back with tennis and tons more predictions. Subscribe to the channel. Comment below. Who do you think wins? This is Good Energy. Get your popcorn, folks.